So I have a table full of brake parts here that need to be cleaned, and I can't be bothered scrubbing them. So we're going to try and do it the easy way, by bathing them in acid. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, come on. Full disclaimer, I do not recommend trying this. This is purely for information and education purposes only. But by rights, this should be the quickest way to clean these up. So what we have here is a couple of 20-litre buckets, some 32% hydrochloric acid, and some bicarb soda for neutralizing. So what we're going to do is we're going to make up a bucket with a 10-to-1 mix of hydrochloric and water. And then we're going to tie wire all of these larger parts into a rod, and we're going to leave them soak in the bucket for, I reckon, an hour maybe. I don't want to go too much because the hydrochloric will actually attack the base metal if we leave it for too long. I think we'll do an hour and we'll see how it looks after that. It's as close to off the bottom as it can be. Going to add about 5 litres of water. And pretty much just enough water and to cover and more or less cover the parts. If you're going to do this, water goes in before the acid. Okay. So that's the parts covered. And then we're going to use our very heavy, very thick chemical resistant gloves to add in our acid, which we are going to do outside. The thing with adding the acid is that once the acid's in, it'll start a chemical reaction. Once that reaction starts, anything that's in the vicinity will start to rust purely from the fumes. I didn't record putting the acid in because it's dangerous, but it's in there. So let's see what it does. And while they're going over there, we're going to make another one up here just for all the smaller parts. Again, not necessarily recommending this. Got a much stronger initial reaction from the small tray. That's interesting. This thing may not actually need to soak quite as long. You can see it literally just eating away at it as we're going. I'm getting a little concerned that these parts might just start to dissolve. That would suck. I realised shortly after the fact what I was probably watching there is the zinc plating coming off those split pins. So that's probably not great. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes. We can see that the stuff, like the muck and rust and stuff, is starting to lift. It's a little hard to see on the camera, I'm sure. So I think an hour should well and truly do it. We'll see what it looks like after it's done. I think I may accidentally have made this a little stronger than 10-to-1, but you have a look, like even inside the pistons and things, they are coming up. Look at the rattle pins. Rust is just falling off it, which is crazy. Just have a look at this, right? So you can see in the water that rust is actually flaking off. Okay, so we're just moving all of our nuts and bolts from our acid solution to a bicarb neutralizing solution. Will stop the acid from continuing to eat into or rust out anything, hopefully. So we'll do this and then we'll rinse it. We'll hit it with some phosphoric acid because it does look flash rusting. And try and get it to dry out a little bit. Half an hour in, doesn't actually look to have changed all that much, but I have a feeling that when we get to it, it'll just flake off, which will be wonderful. Okay, so we've got all our parts. We've run them all through the neutralizing solution. Now we're just going to dry them off, give them a clean, and then we'll probably hit them with the phosphoric acid, which will stop any of the flash rusting occurring again, which is what we want to try and avoid. We'll polish the parts we need to polish, and the parts that need paint, we will paint. Now, it doesn't take off all the rust. Like, the rust doesn't just disappear, but it does, you know, with a little bit of brushing and things, it does just sort of fall away. Doing this mechanically would have been an absolute nightmare. This is not so bad. So it's been an hour. Just going to pull these up and just see what they look like. Definitely looking better. Actually tempted to let them soak for a little bit longer though, because they're still a little rusty and there's still some stuff hanging in there by the looks of it, so might even go a little longer. So after giving the parts a brush over, I actually still wasn't all that happy with them. So we dunked them again for another hour. Much better. So this is exactly what I was hoping for. The acid has more or less stripped the majority of the rust off, and what's left of the rust brushes off. Little brush and gone. That crazy. I can actually wipe it off with my finger. That's unreal. Now, because hydrochloric does have a habit of making things rust, I'm going to give these a quick wipe over with some phosphoric acid, which is a rust converter, which will stop them from turning back on me. And any rust that I missed, it will hopefully treat it, which will keep these looking good for a while. And hopefully I won't have to do them again for a long time. So here's a quick side-by-side of what we started with and what we ended up with. And keep in mind, this was involving very minimal scrubbing. It was basically just enough to move what had been lifted by the solution. And here are our final results. All parts came up really well, and everything required very minimal physical effort to actually get them clean. And the acid seems to get into places that you just can't get to by hand. So far, it caused no major issues with painting. We gave them the quick wipe over with wax and grease remover before we sprayed them with some high temp caliper paint. And yeah, they all came up really nicely. Now, as previously stated, this is highly dangerous and hazardous. I do not necessarily recommend it. And if you are going to do it, make sure that you are well and truly protected. But I am stoked with the results. Hope this was of interest to you guys, and stay tuned for some more old car restoration content. Any questions or comments, please throw them down below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.